The Curse of Strahd is a D&D 5e module in which the player characters are tasked with slaying a one-count Strahd von Zarovich, ruler of the land of Barovia, who, if you can believe it or not, is a vampire. For reference for this review, I was playing with a party of 6, the campaign lasted a year, and I changed a fair degree of stuff as far as combat encounters specifically were concerned. Spoilers for the Curse of Strahd, if that's something you care about. I'm also going to talk about most of this stuff as though you're already familiar with it for the ease of presentation. So let's begin. So first I'll talk about some of the setup stuff. The famous mist traps the characters in Barovia. It's pretty phenomenal, at least in my opinion. Gives even stubborn weirdo players something to motivate them into actually engaging with the module, which is nice. Gives a license to just having replacement PCs just show up. It's good for establishing mood. It's a scary mist. That's what it does. I like the 5e version's punishment for trying to brave the mist is harsh, and the world building stuff it presents with the Yesterhill illusion adds to it. It's very nice. Strahd himself works just fine. He's intimidating at first and hateable enough as the PCs get stronger and more knowledgeable. He is able to relatively survive the tone shift that getting too many levels invites to the table, at least as far as his character is concerned. His backstory and motivations easy to understand, has non-zero depth. He's pretty good, he's pretty compelling, fun to play. The book has his name on it, like he better be pretty good, you know? Talking about his mechanical strength is kind of a double-edged sword. On paper, he looks kind of whatever, but yes, I, like everyone else who runs this campaign, is aware that in practice, if you're trying to play him 100% efficiently, he basically can't lose. But that's always true, right? Like a DM can make any encounter annoying and unwinnable. Strahd's, it's his thing. It's kind of an interesting idea, and I think if you were playing at a table that's really into optimizing and crunchy number stuff, it would be fun. But the people I played with, and I would assume most people playing 5e aren't approaching the game in that way. It seems to me pretty clearly that the intent the book has is for him to do the hit and run nonsense until the PCs get him to the location they pulled from the Taroka deck, at which point he'll like fight for real, and that's where the epic final climactic battle happens. My opinion is that this official stat block should at least have some magic items on him. I know he has his armor, but like, come on, like he has a ton of just stuff lying around his house. Why would he not be using some of it? It doesn't make sense. Maybe higher level spells to explain to the people who care about lore and stuff how he beat Mordenkainen. My players were not satisfied with the explanation that Mordenkainen was out of spells from having to deal with hordes of undead. My players are not particularly granular, so if my players didn't like it, yours also might not. Castle Ravenloft is cool. More dungeon crawls, please and thank you. I mentioned the Taroka deck. I think it's whatever. I think the magic items being in random places is pretty nifty. Ultimately, they're in places the players will try to go anyway. My players got one of the, I think, notoriously difficult ones, being in Strahd's treasury, but they still managed to get it with relative ease when they visited for the dinner. So I can't imagine anything in particular would be too troublesome. The final battle one is also kind of whatever. Some of them are straight up just cooler than some of the others. I'd say maybe just pick one. Draw 3 cards instead of 5, you know? Fated Ally is silly. Half of them, like the people, will already assist the party to the best of their ability. The other half are either useless or absurd. The variance and added firepower is dumb. You can get Lady Walker's dead husband or Mordenkainen, who can cast level 9 spells. My players got Mordenkainen. To my, not regret, because I agree that it made more sense this way, he should have more spells than just the ones the Archmage stat block says he has. He's Mordenkainen. Like, he probably knows most of them. And if your players argue for it, it'd be hard to come up with an argument that isn't. This is just what the book says he has. So, I made him not have wish, force cage, or stuff that does necromancy. So that's how he was limited. Once he joined the party officially, most fights were fairly trivial, at least until I started benching him and the other NPCs that started following the party around. That was another issue that came up a lot. There were just too many NPCs that had no reason to not just follow the party everywhere. Fated Ally, Stella Wachter, Esmeralda, Irina, Ismark, etc. You can explain some of them way into doing other stuff, but my players still got a small army. My fault to some extent, but the book sets you up for it, for sure. As I mentioned earlier, the module is subject to a tone shift as it goes on. D&D 5e, as many people like to point out everywhere all the time, is a heroic fantasy game. While Barovia is scary at first, and lots of the descriptions of places are trying to be scary and creepy or whatever, the fact of the matter is the strongest thing on the random encounter table is like a small group of werewolves, which early game, level 2, you run into them, that's pretty scary. Less so at level 8, especially if most of your party is spellcasters. Even less so as magic items start being a thing. Sun Sword is pretty good. Like, one of the Taroko ones just negates fights with undead, basically. I think the players should be getting good rewards as the module goes on. I think some of them might be a little overtuned. So something everyone likes to talk about after having run Strahd is the changes they made. I am no different. I'm a member of the Faceless Horde, so I will be going over some of the changes I made. Some of these will probably explain why my players were so overpowered. Firstly, I didn't run Death House. I didn't really feel like it. Really, the long and short of it, I just didn't want to. I kept the Vistani mostly the same, but I removed most of the ones that worked directly for Strahd. Not all of them. I still use the opening where they get a letter from someone in a bar, so that made sense. Keep that guy in particular evil, but most of them I think were just indifferent or didn't want to get on Strahd's bad side and just kind of did whatever. I had them sell outside world stuff for exorbitantly high prices. Nice gold sink, otherwise you don't really have much to use it on, but like general store items and like bribing people, which whatever. I added some ghouls to the Barovia village graveyard during the burial of the former burgomaster. Raised the stakes of that whole event a little bit, while still being a relatively easy fight. The players should have like 3 NPC allies while that burial is happening, so it's like, they'll win. Strahd showed up very briefly at the end of this fight to Aura Farm. It was his first appearance. I was pretty low on the extracurricular Strahd appearances. I had one later after the players killed Rahadin because they took his body, so I was like, okay, he'll show up to ask for the body in exchange or something. He makes a deal. There's the dinner. The dinner's great. I changed very little. Oh, okay, there's nothing to change about the dinner because they don't tell you how to run the dinner. Oh, you have to just come out with that wholesale. That's whatever though, haha. Anyway, I added a small cave dungeon north of the Serpool camp, where normally there's just like a big wall. I put in a roper and a sleeping ogre. The roper got owned. My party was very spellcaster heavy. The ogre, more of a puzzle. There was stuff to loot in the room, so they just figured out how to do it without waking up the ogre. Fun. In Valaki, I had Izek turn into a devil. I just thought it would be neat. And it was. My players liked it. I changed him from being obsessed with Irina to being obsessed with the party number. That one's pretty common. I'd recommend it. Irina gets enough to do already. She's low-key the main character. Which is lame, because why is this random NPC the main character? I changed nothing in Kresk. Kresk is good. I buffed the random encounter barbarians, which in hindsight was a mistake. Don't do that. So they got one encounter and it really dragged. Big change I made. Strahd's wives were like actual characters with real stat blocks and narrative presence. Good for mini bosses. I'd strongly recommend doing something like this. It buffs up lackluster late game fights. They're fun characters to work with because like they're gonna be weirdos, right? Like, why is this person committed to Strahd? I had them be like genuinely committed to Strahd too. Like, they're there for personal gain, rather than being like, oh boo-hoo, I'm married to Strahd and everything sucks. No, they're like, I love being married to Strahd. It's awesome. Who would be like that? I don't know. Fun character to work with. It also gives Strahd minions that aren't the spy stat block, can hold their own and aren't named Rahadin. I streamlined the Amber Temple pretty significantly. Mr. Skeleton Man basically greeted them directly and gave a tour. This happened for very, very circumstantial reasons that will almost certainly not come up in your game. If your players are overleveled, I say cut the fights that aren't Rahadin, but if they get there early, play it by the book. Why not? I made the dragon statues at Castle Ravenloft use the adult red dragon stat block. Why not? Just don't go in that room. I expanded on the ending a bit, splitting it into 3 possibilities. Purists aren't gonna like this part. Alright, number 1, players fight and kill Strahd. Normal ending. Barovia will come back. You know, that's what happens. Number 2, players fight and kill Strahd after one of them has received a gift from Vampire. Player with the gift supplants Strahd. I feel like this makes sense. The book kind of sets you up for it, even to some extent. If a player is willing to do it, great. If not, then who cares? Number 3, players destroy the Vampire Amber, then fight and kill a buffed up Strahd. This is one I know people don't like. They don't like the idea of giving Strahd like a buffed up monster second phase, like this is Breath of the Wild or something. Low key, this is my philosophy on it. I think if it's something the players actively choose to do, doing a buffed up Strahd is fine. And I think like destroying the Amber is a deliberate enough decision, and you can telegraph it pretty significantly, like, oh, the spirit will be loose, where will he go? Ha. I think that's fine. It accounts for the overleveledness, and it satisfy your players that want to do everything, that want the good ending. If normal ending Strahd happened, it would be played by the book. Overall, I'd say the Curse of Strahd is fine. The main man is good and is a worthy villain for any self-respecting party. The vibe is good at first and in certain highlight places, but falls apart the longer and higher level the game goes. The DM needs to do more work than should probably be necessary, a theme for 5e adventures, to scale things accordingly, and kind of overall, the map and locations are genuinely hard to understand at first glance. This was especially true of Castle Ravenloft, which while I think is sick, you need to read that thing really good before you run it. Some of the sensibilities of the module are kind of dated, which sometimes works and sometimes results in some on-the-fly term changes. I'm not calling them that, bro. There's lots of child endangerment, which is low-key just kind of cheap. Come on, you can do better. There's lots of rooms and even whole locations with basically nothing to do. I guess descriptions could be better written to telegraph players should move on, or not written at all. I don't know. Why is Mordenkainen in there? Throughout this video, I refer to the Curse of Strahd as a module. Technically, that's not correct. They're called adventures now. They're standalone, to be run as a long campaign in general. But you know what? Curse of Strahd the module. Thank the mists. This adventure can happen whenever. Want to mix up your long-running campaign? It's Strahd now. Just finished Dragon of Icespire Peak. Strahd time. Then you can run something else after the players get super powerful by slaying Strahd. It's a module. It's modular.